Picture a mother in a forest, maybe 100,000 years ago. Her baby can't chew yet, and there's nothing soft to feed it. No jar of mush, no blender, none of that. So she does the one thing that works. She chews the food soft in her own mouth, presses her lips to her baby's, and passes it over. It's tender, it's also kind of gross, and it might be the reason you kiss the people you love. Here's the question almost nobody stops to ask. Why do we do this at all? Why press two mouths together and decide that counts as romance? The real answer is older and stranger than the question, and the evidence buried in the ground is honestly hard to believe. Start by throwing out the idea that everyone kisses. We treat it like breathing. Obvious, universal, human, it isn't. In 2015, an anthropologist named William Jankowiak went through 168 cultures and asked one thing. How many actually kiss the romantic mouth-to-mouth way we take for granted? Fewer than half, about 46%. Think about that. In most human societies anyone has ever studied, leaning in for a kiss wasn't sweet. It was weird, unhygienic, or just not a thing people did. Some groups watched outsiders do it and were openly grossed out. So kissing isn't a basic instinct wired into every human. Somewhere, someone started. And that's where this gets strange. The sharpest recent answer came in 2024 from an evolutionary psychologist at the University of Warwick named Adriano Lamera. He looked at our closest relatives, the great apes, and noticed something. When chimps and bonobos groom each other, picking through fur for dirt and bugs, they tend to finish the same way. One last press of the lips, a little suck against the skin to get that final bit of debris. Lamera's argument is blunt. The kiss is what's left of that last groom. As our ancestors lost their thick body hair, there was less and less to clean. The grooming got shorter. Eventually, all that survived was the ending. The lip press, aimed now at nothing but another face. So every kiss you've ever given might be the leftover of an ape picking bugs off a friend. Honestly, respect. That's not the only theory though, and this one loops right back to where we started. For almost all of human history, mothers had no baby food. To get an infant off milk and onto solids, women on nearly every continent did exactly what we opened with. Chewed the food soft and passed it, mouth to the child. There's a name for it. Pre-mastication, or kiss feeding, and it turns up everywhere. Some researchers think that's the emotional root of the whole thing. Before a baby can talk, it learns that a mouth against yours means food, means care, means safe. You grow up, and that wiring doesn't just switch off. The mouth-to-mouth press stays quietly filed under intimacy. So the kiss you think of as romance might, underneath it all, be a feeding gesture we never gave up. Now the animals, because we're far from the only ones doing this. Bonobos, the famously affectionate cousins of the chimp, kiss all the time, open-mouthed, with tongue. The primatologist Franz de Waal once told a story about a zookeeper who accepted what he assumed was an innocent bonobo kiss and got a lot more than he signed up for. Chimps kiss too, but for them it's usually repair work. After a fight, two of them will come back together and press their mouths in what researchers just call reconciliation. So the basic ingredient, mouth contact as a sign of peace and closeness, was already sitting in our family tree long before anything human turned up. We didn't invent the kiss, we inherited the urge and dressed it up. So when does the human version actually show up in the record? For years, the oldest solid evidence came from India, in Vedic texts over 3,000 years old that describe lovers pressing their mouths together. Then, in 2023, two researchers, Troels Pank Arbol and Sophie Lund Rasmussen, pushed it back further. Going through cuneiform clay tablets from ancient Mesopotamia, they found romantic kissing described plainly around 2500 BCE. 4,500 years ago, someone in what's now Iraq pressed into wet clay that people kissed their lovers, and that people already worried a kiss could pass on sickness. Which brings us to the part they leave off the Valentine's cards, because a kiss is also the most efficient way we have ever found to swap our germs. One short kiss trades tens of millions of bacteria between two people. Most of it does nothing to you, Some of it does. Take the cold sore virus, HSV-1. In 2022, a team at the University of Cambridge traced the modern strains of that virus and found their big spread lines up with the Bronze Age, a time of mass migration, crowded new settlements, and, the researchers suggest, maybe the spread of romantic kissing itself. Sit with that. The gesture we use to say I love you may have helped carry a virus across the ancient world, lip to lip, generation after generation, all the way down to you. Here's the reframe that reorders the whole thing. Lay the pieces out together. Kissing isn't universal, and most cultures never did it. Our closest relatives use mouth contact to groom and to make peace. Human mothers used it to feed their babies. And wherever it catches on, it spreads fast. That paints a strange picture. The kiss isn't a fixed instinct stamped into every human at birth. It's closer to an invention. Something a handful of cultures stumbled into, probably by taking an old grooming reflex or a feeding gesture and pointing it at a mate. And it worked well enough to stick. And it does work. A real kiss floods your brain with oxytocin and drops your stress hormone, cortisol. It also lets you sample another person's scent and taste at point-blank range. A kind of background check your conscious mind never notices you running. You think you're being romantic. You're actually taking readings. You inherited a grooming gesture from an ape and a feeding gesture from a mother, and you turn the two of them into the way you fall in love. So think about what's really happening the next time you kiss someone. It isn't simple. You're running an old program with at least 3 authors. There's the ape, finishing a groom with one last press of the lips. There's the mother, chewing food soft and passing it to a child who couldn't survive any other way. And there's some anonymous person in a Mesopotamian town 4,500 years ago, pressing the whole strange idea into wet clay so it would outlast them. You're the endpoint of all 3. Every one of those threads runs straight into your own mouth, unbroken, and here's the humbling part. We like to think our feelings are ours. Private, invented fresh for the person in front of us. The kiss says otherwise. Almost nothing about the way you love is new. The gesture is borrowed. The wiring is inherited. The pull to press close and check whether someone is safe is older than language, older than farming, older than the first word anyone ever said out loud. We just layered the meaning on top and told ourselves we came up with it. So next time it happens, the lean in, the pause, the press, remember what it actually is. Not an instinct every human is born with. A habit our species picked up, cleaned off, and carried for tens of thousands of years, hand to hand, mouth to mouth, all the way to you. Go back to that mother in the forest. The chewed food. Her lips against the tiny mouth. The tenderness and the mess of it tangled up together. That's where it starts. That's what you inherited. You're still doing it. You just call it love.